All right, so welcome to this session. So today I'm going to talk to you about the things you need to know to migrate successfully from perspective to PAfE. So what this presentation is about, it's really about the journey with your user when transitioning to PAfE. It's a compilation of feedback that we gathered with our client doing that transition and helping you to do that transition successfully. Yeah. What this presentation is not about, it's not about the decision-making process. Should you go to PAfE or not? The architecture constraint, everything around that, about like the reports that are available. It's really about rolling it out to the user. That's really what we are going to focus on now. Yeah. Ooh. First thing first, you need to prepare, obviously, the training, technical testing, and so on. But really, what you need to prepare is preparing the users. Like you have to put yourself in their shoes. Maybe you as a TM1 admin as well. You have been using Perspective for years. You are super confident with it. You know what to do, where things are. And now you need to use something differently. And like the buttons are not in the same place, that can be a bit challenging. So what I really highly recommend is to state what are the benefits and why are we doing this in the first place. Just explaining why will give reasons and will bring people on board with you. Well, first reason is Perspective sunsets. There is no new functionalities coming out. It's not part of TM1 V12. That's like pretty much the end of Perspective. That's cool, but to me, like the two following reasons are more competing for the user, because the first one, the user don't really care. They just want to use something. Network performance actually is one of the great reasons why you would move to PAfE. It works over wide area network or over internet. We have some clients with server in Sydney and users in Brisbane or even in the UK, and that's working. Yeah. I have had situations where clients were really happy to drop Citrix licenses that they had to use with Perspective. So there was like some cost saving involved. Yeah. And the second main reason for the user is the advanced reporting with hierarchy. So PAfE is hierarchy aware. For those who don't know what are hierarchies, you take a dimension, let's say a product dimension, and you can have multiple hierarchies by category, by type of product, and so on. So overall, you use less dimension in your design, and your models are smaller and actually easier to maintain as well over time. If you need to add a new hierarchy, you can do that without breaking queues. But like PAfE is ready for that. And that's two very good reasons where that the user should appreciate and get feedback, get benefit out. Change management, you need to really take care of your user. This is not a new version of Perspective. Like I had like a situation where IT was like, oh, just install it and give it to the user. No. It has to be really tested. It's different. And I have to say that it's even harder for Perspective users or like the person who are really comfortable with Perspective to move to PAfE than brand new user, because there is less change, or it's easier. Yeah. So long story short, we need to insist heavily on change management and training. Yeah. And I really also recommend to involve power user, the ones that are really key in your organization. They might be the hardest to convince, but they will relay the message to the other users and actually help you in the testing and know what will work or what need to be tested and so on. PAfE positioning. So what is important to know is PAfE is an end user interface only, opposed to Perspective where you can develop as well. There is no rule editor, no TI editor. So some power user might sometime look at this. You need to just be aware of this. There are other ways, but not in PAfE to look at rules or TIs. Yeah. Development need to be done in other tools, whether it's Arc, PA Workbench, or ironically on Perspective on the server. That's like the three main ways to develop. Now, in terms of migration, I'm going to state the obvious, but your TM1 model stays the same, like to the user. You don't need to reconcile, you don't need to migrate or check the data. The model is the same. However, existing reports need to be tested and checked. One of the recent transitions that I did for a client, I prepared them telling them that 95% of the report would work. That's a made-up number, but just to give them an idea. And but they should check them all. In the end, it was 99% of the report actually worked without any problem. We will see what was 1%. Action button need to be migrated. So you have all the same functionality, navigate, trigger TI, and so on. But behind the scenes, the VBA code or the code is different between Perspective and PAfE. That's why you need to migrate them. There is like a tool within PAfE to migrate them, so that's not so much an issue, but you need to go through that. And talking about the VBA, Perspective VBA won't work on PAfE. So there are like VBA functions in PAfE, but you need to pretty much rework that. Like an advice, try to stay away from VBA. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was a big thing because you could do quite a lot of things. But like with dynamic reports and the active form, you should have, and the action button, you should have already a lot to play with. Yeah. So the functionality which are not migrated when you move to PAfE, the print report. So here you have three options. One is actually to use the print report from TM1 Web. It works slightly differently. You don't have as many options like the number of files and things like that, but it can work for some situation. Ironically, for one client, we choose the option to give access to a power user to Perspective on the server, so just he could generate the report from there. So that was like less impactful for them. Or actually, maybe I shouldn't be saying that here, but Slice actually have the print report functionality in the enterprise version, and with like option to print the report. So that might be one consideration just for this reason. Chore cannot be triggered in PAfE. You can't see any chore. So think about the power user we use to right-click, reload the data. So that can be easily worked around because you can have access to TI. So you can run a TI, but you might just need to think that through. Yeah. And there are a few other points. There is a list on the IBM website. I find them minor, but you need to go through them. There are like few spreading methods which are different. You don't have an undo, but it's up to you to decide if that's really important or not. Installation and setup. Here, I'm going to quickly go through that. Installation and configuration is really simple. Installation, it's like just a small file that you need to, a small Excel add-in, and the configuration on the client side is pretty much as Perspective. You need to point to a server and you are connected. That being said, there is two things that I want to highlight. Is by default in PAfE, you don't have the refresh for the shortcut with F9 and Shift F9. So that's the first thing that people try, and then you have like heaps of people asking, how do we do that? So do that first, activate that option. It's in the options. There is a tick box, and you have them. And then that's one is like not impacting everyone, but there is an option to turn in Excel to make sure that the panel displays properly, where you have the list of cubes and dimension, because sometimes it can turn gray. So just use that and that option, and that's really the only thing that you need to care about during the installation on the configuration process. So now I'm going to talk to you about the good stuff. So that's really the little things that make the user life easier. It's not about like, oh, this report is better, works that way, or things like that, but it's really the small little thing in PAfE when you are transitioning to Perspective that, in my opinion, you should say to the user to show them as well, like, hey, you also have some nice little features that might help you. First, copy paste a data range to DBRW formula. Like it wasn't possible in perspective, so you can just FYI, I have a low battery, so I might have a problem here. But here, so yeah, you can paste a data range, and then that will pretty much paste the data and refresh, and that should be helpful. Yeah. Some people actually had to do that in TM1 Web, or use DBS formula to do that. And yeah. So then the next good thing that I think is calculations. So for this, in perspective, you have the roll-up to sum two elements together, but here you have way more flexibility, where you can do A plus B, A minus B, average, and even like including percentage of change between two periods. So you might have that in your model already, but it gives that ability to the user. And the good thing with that is you can use that as a normal element. So you might use that variance and then just browse your data this way just to find the difference and everywhere. Yeah. Another one that I like is keep an element straight from the view. When you are navigating, you can do right click and keep an element. If you think about it, when you are in perspective, when you want to keep an element, you need to open the subset editor, find the elements, click on it, use the green tick, press OK, go back to the cube, refresh your cube view, and that's for every single dimension that you are going through. So that's really for users. I think it can be interesting for them. Another one is actually the snapshot functionality, where within PAfE you can snapshot a report. So what this function is doing is it's removing all TM1 formula, sub-NM, DBRW, and but keeping the Excel formula. So if you had like some Excel logic, then it's available in the Excel, and it's, less a black box for the end user, even though I tend to recommend to have those calculations in the model and not in Excel, but at least it's there, and that's convenient. Another thing is you can snapshot this tab, the whole workbook or all your workbook open at the same time. I think it's quite nice to have this functionality compared to perspective once again. One is pick list created from the sub-NM. So when you have a subset defined in your sub-NM, PAfE will turn that into a pick list. So you just need to use it, and it will just refresh the report. It seems simple, but once again, if you think the perspective way, double click, find the element, click, press OK, then refresh. Yeah, I have seen actually some clients going crazy on VBA to just do that functionality because they didn't want to have that pop-up window with the sub-NM. So that's like the little functionalities that I found interesting in PAfE, and that you can tell to your user to get them on board. Then some little quirks that I've observed. Any circular reference in Excel, and I said Excel, will just stop PAfE to refresh. So you can have a PAfE report working, open a new workbook, do a circular reference, this cell equals this cell, and that's it. And all your PAfE reports are going to stop working. So that's something that, with a bit of humor, I'm saying that's sanity check functions in PAfE. Yeah, so actually this reason was 1% why this client couldn't migrate the report. Is because in his report, they had like circular reference that they didn't spot before, like wrong copy paste and stuff. And nothing was working because of that circular reference. So in Excel, you can do search for circular reference, you kill those, and then it's back on track. Yeah. Here it's very detailed, but DBRA, we found that it's not right back anymore. I mean, it's not something that you use every single day, but that in that situation, that was the case. The easy workaround, turn the DBRA into DBRW to the attribute cube. That's it, done. That's working, yeah. The old, it's not really that old, but the F2 enter to refresh one DBRW doesn't work in PAfE. The refresh, the way it's happening, the minimum refresh that you have is the current tab. So it's Shift F9. It's not much, but it has been raised by some users. So if you know that, raise them up front. At least people know it, and you manage the expectation. An interesting one, which has been confusing, the level 0 in perspective is the leaf level, and in PAfE, it's the higher parents. So which lead to, how do you reach your leaf level? Because it might be level 6, 7, and if you have an unbalanced hierarchy, it might be some in level 6, some in level 10. So they made something which is, I actually like that functionality, where for any dimension, you have like 3 options to have all roots, which is the highest parent, all leaf, which is the old level 0, and all elements. So for that very client, they were using the level 1 in perspective for some reason in an uneven hierarchy. So we had to think that through and plan for attribute or things like that to allow them to easily grab those information. But that's worth to notice and mention, yeah.
Well, that's when Microsoft implemented MDX the new way. So the highest level is the highest number.
Yeah.
The lowest number, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
so I haven't changed it anyway. If I want to
yeah.
There's always been different things that take it from different ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, you just need to, I mean, let's be honest, like with the end user, except if, well, I was about to bring the topic of the MDX and the level as an end user, except if they have like a very specific way, they might not even really realize that change. But yeah, you need to have an answer in case you had to go through that, yeah. So that's really, I mean, in the end, it's a lot of things that can be easily worked around. I'm not pretending that's everything, all the quirks about PAfE, but that's the one that I faced in 3 migrations for some clients. And for those clients, they pretty much involve the user to test all the report, and that was part of the training, and it went overall pretty smoothly. So with this, I mean, I'm wishing you a very successful migration. But as you may see, like, I didn't really went too much into the technical side, but it's more like really train the user, set the expectation, let them know what's going to happen. That's way easier than coming after. And when like people are like, oh, I can't refresh. Well, you should just tick that box here. If you plan that earlier, that's not even a point, yeah. So really training, that's what I highly recommend, yeah. So I think I'm pretty much on time, but is there any questions, whether it's in the room or online, or, yeah, feel free. I guess it was pretty clear. I hope.
One question. Does PAfE still require a PAW installation?
Yes, so that's something that, yeah, PAfE is relying on PAW for the cube views, the subset editor, like all the screens that I was showing. This is coming from PAW, and yes, this needs to be installed. So that's another discussion on how you should be installing it, what platform, where, but yeah.
So I know you guys are moving away from and encouraging clients to move away from VBA. But if you have a lot of VBA, like how much compatibility is there? I mean, yes, you need to call different functions and stuff like that. But like, are are there the simple, I'm assuming that it's the simple VBA functions like connect and things like that. Do you know how extensive that list is?
So I didn't have to do that. Well, luckily I didn't have that. For a client, the only thing is they didn't know that action button could refresh, which sounds simple. And so they were creating VBA button just to go, application run, refresh. So I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. Now for more complex things, I didn't have to handle that specific case. I know that there is a full documentation with VBA function. I assume that you have the usual connect, refresh, and everything. But yes, I would say that's a project in itself. Yeah.
Got some more questions?
Sure.
So, first question is, can PAfE and perspectives run together in Excel?
So this is not recommended. What I've done is like play with the add-in, activate one or the other, but this is not really recommended. And knowing that the action button, work differently. Yeah. But PAfE report can be edited in perspective and the other way around. I mean, for the custom and the active form, they can work together, but to be avoided to avoid confusion. Maybe an admin, that's okay, but yeah.
Another question. Does it mean the report with MDX needs to be adjusted if we filter by level 0?
That's a very good question. I need to refresh my memory, but I think the way the MDX is, maybe I have the MDX expert in the room, but it's depending on the function, the MDX function that you use. If it's TM1 filter by level 0 should give you the leaf, but that's a new, yeah. But then like, yeah, you need to try it out. It depends on the function actually, yeah.
Question here, which is, what's your recommendation for those power users that need to run processes or chores through perspectives? What are the alternatives?
Well, the TI runs, so I would recommend just to give them, leave them the access that they have on the TI and execute from there. The only thing for chores, I would wrap that into a TI. You might lose the benefit of multi-commit of the chore, but that would be my way to go here. If it's not too long, I would just wrap things into a TI. That would be the way.
How long would you reckon to migrate from perspectives to PAfE for 100 plus perspective users? Months, weeks?
I guess it's more the number of reports. That's really it. And like, if you have some VBAs, that will be way longer. If you have basic report, active forms, because I think it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, like for those clients, it was just a matter of opening, refreshing. Yes, that works. All good. That's it, done. So yeah, it needs to be tested. That's really it. Yeah.
That's it.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot. Thank you.